Hello, friends. It is Tuesday, and it is 5:30 Pacific time. My name is Rich Teslo, and this is the Two Guys Tech Homelab Hour. I see the chat is already blowing up. 15 minutes early, I might add. There are people in there talking, so appreciate that. That's good. It's good to be here, guys. I got a lot of great things to talk about. A lot of. I want to catch up on a lot of stuff, especially like the last video went out. Talk about the future stuff, of course, and I got a bone to pick that I want to talk about with you guys. But let's get like we always do, let's get the housekeeping out of the way first. First off, Brandon is back and he's producing the show. So now if it's terrible, it's his fault. So I'm glad to have him back. It's been a while, and it's a lot easier to do this if there's someone who's also doing the pressing the butos, so I can be the talent. Anyway, so I'm really glad to have Brandon back. It's really, really good to have him back. As always, if you've never seen this before, this is episode 14. So there have been 13 others of these. The whole objective of our HomeLab hours to hang out, talk about HomeLab, talk about self-hosting, talk about the content and the videos that I make on the channel. If you got any questions, that kind of stuff, and hang out with like-minded, nerdy, tech nerd people like myself and in this chat. This chat is just, is going crazy. Right now they're talking about being data hoarders, and I am a closet data hoarder. I just don't tell people that I'm not. Anyway, what else? Oh, I only get a few times to do this in the show. We have a Discord. It is free. A lot of the people that I'm seeing in the chat are actually in that Discord, and so it's good to see them in both places. It's totally free and a great place to hang out. You can interact with me, other people, Brandon, John, and all these awesome people who have quite impressive home labs and just like to nerd out and talk about stuff. So get to the Discord, get in there and have a look around. Join us. We would love to have you. We don't put the link up anymore, but the link is available if you go to the link section for YouTube. You guys, you know how to use YouTube. It's the thing. I don't have. Oh, one more housekeeping. I'm sorry. Next week, friends, would be the 15th episode, but I will be in Washington, D.C. I am going to be going to Nutanix Next 2025, and it is, I fly out on the 6th, which is the Tuesday, so that's not going to happen. And but if anyone here is watching this happens to be there too, let me know. I would love to meet you guys. But I'm gonna be running around checking out everything that Nutanix has to offer for their next 2025 conference. And it's a pretty interesting. This lady looks like that she would murder you. Well, she's a former Secret Service agent, so she probably would. But pretty cool. It's a good opportunity to. They have a great agenda full of a bunch of really interesting things, and so maybe I'll come back and tell you all about what's hot and what's coming in Nutanix. But that being said, I will not be here next week, so you're all gonna have to figure something else out to do on a Tuesday. So I apologize. I know I'm your default. I know you have a lot of options in entertainment on a Tuesday at 5:30 Pacific time. So we thank you for flying Two Guys Tech Airlines. Anyway, let's get right down to it, because I know that there's a lot of people in the chat, and I wanted to. Oh yeah, exactly. Sakura says he can sleep. This gentleman decided that he was gonna get some extra rest, wake up, drink some coffee, so he could hang out with us. So I appreciate having him on. He should have slept in. That's my opinion. But I wanted to start the show by talking about Private Cloud Director, Platform 9's Private Cloud Director Community Edition, because the video went out last week, and if for this kind of stuff, which I honestly, if I may be so bold, feels a bit esoteric. Like if you think about home labbing, and I know you guys think about it a lot because that's why you're here, right? Anyway, if you think about home labbing, there's just like a certain group of people, like the collection of people who are into this stuff is of a certain size. And that kind of runs the gamut of like everything, like home labbing, just big bucket. But then you go virtualization, maybe self-hosting inside on that a little bit, and then you're like private cloud. Feels like it's a lot smaller bucket, but it did incredibly well. And there's a lot of people who are super, super interested. Shadow Technologies asked a good question, and no, they have not fixed that bug. But I understand that they're aggressively working on it. Anyway. So I want to kind of go through it with you guys now that it's done and I have it running and it's fully productionized, so to speak. Just kind of like walk through it and talk to you guys about it. And just if you got questions, if there's something you want to see, if you want to stop me and say, hey dude, what's that thing right there, let me know, because I would love to stop and go through it. So I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. We'll just run through it really quick. Platform 9. They have a product called Private Cloud Director. They released a community edition version of it. Thank you, Brandon. And that was what the last video was about. Go check out the video because I run through the whole thing start to finish on it. So, but I don't go into super deep detail about like the installation portion of it because honestly, one of the guys who actually works with Platform 9 is in our Discord, and he did a really great like video start to finish. So I'm like, I'm not going to try to compete with that. Anyway, let's take a look at it. So I am not SSO'd here. So I got to log in with the local credentials on this guy. And by the way, that's not a real email address, so don't try to send me an email to it. It's not going to work. And log in. Cool. Maybe I should learn how to type my passwords. Second time's a charm. Yay! There it is. Okay. I have this really like zoomed in a little bit, and I hate to do that, so I'll zoom out a little bit. Sorry, it's going to be an eye chart, and I hate that, but it is what it is. This is the Private Cloud Director dashboard. And, you know, this is like every dashboard you land on. You get a bunch of information about your virtual machines that are running, their state, quantity, hypervisors, state and quantity, and then quotas. But the quotas are based on what tenant you're in. I only have a single tenant. By the way, this is a multi-tenant system, meaning that you can have as many tenants as you want and sell access or provide access to others to live inside that tenant. And you can do all the typical tenant things you want to do, like set a quota for how much compute and storage and all that kind of stuff. Like you would, you know, well, we looked at, what was the other one we looked at a while back? Verge OS, same concept, right? Verge OS had the same concept of multi-tenancy. So dashboards like me. By the way, there's one thing that I wish this had more of, and so I'll throw that out right now because it just came to mind. It's not a whole lot of graphing. I am a statistics nerd, not in the sense that I actually, you know, like statistics in terms of going to a college class or learning or doing something like statistics, but I really like seeing graphs. I like seeing heuristics. I like seeing changes over time. I like pretty picture graphs. You know? Anyway, they don't have much of that at all actually in this. So this is the dashboard. This is really, again, at a glance. I think it might have a dark mode actually. Let's go to admin settings here and see if it has a dark mode. And that's just kind of, no. The answer is no. No dark mode for you. It's another ad. The thing is, I will say also that these guys working on this are like, they're taking input too. So if you're interested in this and you want to see change, like you can tell their community. Anyway, infrastructure. I have 4 physical nodes. With this software, you can have virtual nodes. You can have physical nodes. Actually, we should probably take a step back and talk about one of the idiosyncrasies about this, because Brandon and I were talking about it in the pre-show. The thing with the way Private Cloud Directory deploys, which is a lot different than your, like, let's say traditional data center virtualization, is that the vCenter equivalent, the PCD, the Private Cloud Director itself, has to be and is always outside of your compute, your virtualization stuff. And so that's kind of a chicken egg thing. Like, well, in other virtualization platforms, you know, like VMware or VirgIO, whatever, your management controller, if you will, whether it's vCenter or something like that, can live on a virtual hypervisor as a virtual machine. Not so much here. Like, you have to have a separate system to run the Private Cloud Director. So it is kind of a, yeah, there's a lot of people not happy about the lack of dark mode. I know a guy. Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying when it comes to the way it's deployed is, when you have that sort of situation, what you end up with is having to have the Private Cloud Director running on a virtual machine somewhere else, or a physical piece of hardware, whatever works for you. And I'm running this in my Proxmox hypervisor. That's where the PCD is running. PCD is a little heavy on resources, right? To run it, it's this thing is running OpenStack underneath. It's got all the pinnings and under all of whatever makes OpenStack, right? It's got all that kind of stuff on there. So, you know, it requires a fair bit of resources. You need 32 gigs of RAM for it. That guy needs 32 gigs of RAM. They want you to have a minimum of 12 cores, which is quite a bit. That's quite a bit of cores, especially, you know, if you think about it. So, hold on, I was going to refresh this thing because it's not working right for me. Does that work now? Or not? Whatever. Doesn't matter. And what we're looking at here being the cluster hosts. These guys are they're the compute hosts, right? I have 4 of them. Like I said, they are running on physical hardware down in the garage. They're running on that quad node box I've got. I'm gonna take my hat off because it is hot in here. Anyway, and the nice thing about this, the way that this whole thing deploys, is these are just running Ubuntu. The nodes are running Ubuntu server. The PCD is running Ubuntu desktop, and you just throw it a curl command at Platform 9's deployment, and it just deploys it for you. It's all takes care of the whole thing start to finish, and that is super convenient. No downloading of ISOs, none of that kind of stuff. Now I will say that the update process for this is still a bit in flux. As I understand it, there's quite a lift to do it. They're working on that. So maybe don't roll this into production yet. You know what I'm saying? Maybe take your time and experiment at first while they're still getting that whole like update process set up so that you can get Private Cloud Director and your nodes updated and not have to worry about, I don't know, manually doing it or something like that. Sean, welcome. So as you can see here on this, you can see my basically 3 macro cards: CPU, memory, storage. Obviously there's not a whole lot going on with these machines at the moment, and I've got these 4 nodes. Each one of these nodes has a, let me click this here. Everything is contextual. So like I click this box and then these other things show up. So these systems have roles. They're all, I have basically my network access policy applied, and that policy comes from the cluster blueprint. They're all hypervisors. This one is a VM image library. We kind of talked about this before, and they all have my persistent storage, and I'm not going to change any of the stuff. But the thing that is the toughest thing for a lot of people, I'm sorry, what I should say is the thing that's the toughest thing for me to kind of come to terms with is like the concept of how you deploy machines in the private cloud. From a person who does IT as a day job, when I think of clouds, I think of like Azure, AWS, those sort of things where you log into a web interface, you say, I need a virtual machine. I will pick from the list of virtual machines that you offer, and then I will choose the operating system that runs those virtual machines. Same thing with this. The difference here is you get to be the one who defines what they call them flavors in this regard versus like t-shirt sizes. And then you have to be the one to provide the images to do so. And all the images that exist are the things you have to download from the internet or make yourself. And so that there is a kind of a bit of a difference there. And then on top of that, keep in mind that you don't install the operating system on anything. You have basically a pre-built image that is just cloned and deployed, and poof, there it goes. Okay, I should get back here. Kevin, welcome. Let's get all of these people popping up here. Can the VM host storage be local compared to network storage? Yes. Your physical hosts have storage, and you can target that and run it there too. The problem with not using, like if we look at one of my VMs here, are these all volumes? The one thing about not targeting the shared storage is that then you lose your high availability. And that's what one of the nice things about this platform. If I go back to cluster blueprint, which is the thing that defines the configurations for the hosts, when this kind of comes around, come on, you got this. You can do it. Or maybe not. It always happens, right, folks? Right, when you're trying to show something off and it stops working. Let me refresh it. Oh, well, that could just be because my session. How about that? Anyway, so if you have 4 hosts, you can turn on virtual machine high availability. Same as with VMware, same as with any virtualization platform where if you lose a physical host, it will fire up those VMs somewhere else. And that's awesome, right? You don't have to pay anything for that. That's already there. But the downside is it takes 4 hosts to do it. And that's a heavy lift for a lot of people, right? Like I think it was Brandon who mentioned to me, he's like, why can't you do that with 3 hosts? Or why can't you do that with 2 hosts? If you have shared storage between them, right? Your persistent shared storage, why couldn't you? Why couldn't you do that? And that's a good question. I'm not sure what the underpinnings of it is. It probably has to do with OpenStack that makes that the way it is, but that is a limitation. The other thing it has, automatic resource rebalancing. Like it'll automatically balance the workloads across the cluster. And that is not something that's dependent on your high availability. If you have multiple hosts, it'll rebalance and you get to define the policies for which that does it. So But let's deploy something, because I think I have to do a trust thing on here. Okay, pop up now. Okay, that's all I have to do. All right. The hosts themselves, there's a certificate. That's one thing that I actually mentioned in the videos. Like, I'd really like to be able to manage certificates via this user interface, and you can't. They have a little bit of ways to grow, I think, in terms of like what they offer in terms of accessing stuff. And so I'm looking forward to those improvements. But these are the images that I've got. I've downloaded these. Like, if you go pop open the Googles here and go to download Ubuntu cloud image. We look here. So this is all I did to get these images. I just clicked and then patiently waited for it to load. Doing it live, folks. We're doing it live. Go, internet, go. No, that's another question that just popped. Dang it, Brandon got to it. Oh God, I should stop. I'm not used to Brandon being back. No, you can't change the URL. That's a good thing to point out. So this URL that I've got right here, this pcd-community.pf9.io, is hard coded, and that's not bueno. So I wish that was something that would. I'd asked them to mention that in the video, and I heard back that they're going to look into making that happen. So Ubuntu Cloud Images. I just went and grabbed 24, the Noble one, right? I just went here and said I want the current, and then grabbed the one that is a QCOWS 2 boot disk image, that guy. And you know, it's 584 megs, and that, let's zoom in so you guys can actually see that, because it's 584 megs. That's it. And so basically, I downloaded that and then I uploaded it, and then I can deploy images off that. And the deployment, because it's just cloning that 584 megs into a larger volume, and is done. It's incredibly fast. It really is. So a different concept. Like, if I want to build a virtual machine, let's go deploy a VM, and if you boot from an image, you're just going to run basically a read only. You're going to play inside the image. When you shut it down, it's gone. But so we'll build a new. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Could a cloud provider use this so end users could self-service? 100%, dude. That's 100%. That is. Now, if I take a step back here and say, Community Edition is really for the community to learn on, but it's completely unlimited. Like, they have no limitations in this. There's no time boxing. There's no resource boxing. There's nothing that would prevent you to do it. So they also have a paid version. Yes, as Sakura mentioned right below. But yeah, that is, that's exactly what that, you could run this. Like, it made me want to run a private cloud in my garage, and just like, when it's getting too hot in there in the summer, just open the garage door and let the hot air out, and just start selling VPS things. You could. Yeah, well, so throw that one up there, Brandon, about the trying to avoid cloud stack, because it's important to note that this is OpenStack, and there's a lot of people who claim that cloud stack is easier than OpenStack. But at any rate, they're trying to avoid the stack. So, for the record, this is running OpenStack. So, like, that being said, you don't ever have to interact with it, which is great. You have the user experience to do it and user interface, but underneath the covers, that's what it's doing. So back to this. So if I want to deploy a new VM off this, right? So I'm going to choose a new volume, because I want this to be, if I didn't want it to be persistent, like it rebooted, it was just temporary, I could choose boot off an image, right? The image, the thing I downloaded. But new volume, 20 gigabyte, sure, just for the sake of it. Now, I do not believe that these are thin provisioned. These are full provisioned, I think. Just there's an asterisk, you just can't see right here. So keep that in mind. Like, you provision this stuff out, you might not want to throw too much stuff on there and extend yourself beyond your persistent storage. And then this, the volume type here. Well, this is where you choose where it wants to live, right? If I say none or default, I believe it ends up on the host it's deployed on, but NFS will land on my persistent storage. And then I can say, let's run, I will use this one just for the sake of it. And then down here, so by the way, these were the images, right? These are the 4 images that I uploaded. I'm going to be honest with you, something that's not in the video. This Kali Linux has a cloud image But you notice how it doesn't show a size? Like the ISO shouldn't show a size, but everyone else shows you the deployment size, right? The minimum deployment for this. The Kali one just doesn't work right, and it's straight out of their repo. So we'll choose Noble, and we will look at my flavors, the t-shirt sizes, right? And these are all, like, obviously I made one here. Rich's favorite size, little OP, right? 16 vCPUs and 16 gigs of RAM. For the sake of this, like, we can get 20 gigs. Now, as a key point here, you notice how tiny is grayed out, and that's because the t-shirt size for tiny is 1 vCPU, 1 gigabyte of storage. But this image requires at least 3.5 gigs to deploy on its own. So that's not going to work, right? So that's why it's immediately grayed out, because any one of the minimum requirements, mostly in this case, is just storage. You can make this size anything you want up here, because that is the size that you will deploy, the disk size. But these are the, you know, the minimum requirements for it. So anyway, we'll choose M1 here. The M1 small, not to be tiny. And then you choose your network. This dumps right onto my internal home network, so it gets an IP address. This is a virtual interface I did. And we will call it Rich's test machine on stream. Will you work? I like how you can use special characters, which is odd. Most of the stuff doesn't let you. SSH key. You can import an SSH key, which will be handed over to the cloud image, right? So that you can just SSH in without having to use or pass on it. This is on my Mac, which is not the system I'm on here. And then I don't have server groups defined on this system yet. And then you can use Cloud Init, and you can configure the password. So you can say whatever you want in this, right? Password 1. That's the most secure password there is. But Cloud Init, I've been told by others that Cloud Init is the way. If someone could get a meme of you know, this is the way. So anyway, so you can define Cloud Init. You can dump anything you want in this that fits into whatever the standard, you know, syntax for Cloud Init is. And security groups are basically security policies, right? You can set up a default firewall policy, and I have one for allowing all. The default one is inside out only, but not outside in terms of, like, you deploy the virtual machine and it can get out to the internet, but you can't SSH in, you can't do anything you want to it. And so I created an allow all policy because I would like to be able to bidirectionally interact with it. And then you can add some metadata stuff if you use some metadata for whatever reason, like tracking or API calls, that kind of stuff. And then I hit the deploy buto, and it does the little dot thing. This comes up to say, if this is a Windows machine, this is what the Windows username and password will be for it. It's not a Windows machine. So hit finish, and we can watch it here. We can watch it real time together. We can watch it. I want to probably pull that up if I can. So it is building, right? And as we sit here making small talk, and still making small talk. How was your day? My day was fine. Had to deal with people. Okay, and it's done. So at this point, it's cloned the disk, it's kicked off the VM, and then we can click on it and go check out the console and see where it's at. And it's expanding that drive. That's what it's doing down here. Like I said, 20 gigs, if you remember, right? So I told it to be 20 gigs in size, but that image is 3.5 gigs. So after it gets deployed, it does the self-expansion out. So this sits here for a while and does its thing. And eventually you'll be handed off a prompt. Not so sexy, right? I mean, keep in mind that this is, you know, the whole intention of this is to provide VPS services to others, right? Not necessarily to you. If you want to do virtualization like you're used to doing in your home labs, for the most part, Private Cloud Director really isn't for you. The hardware requirements alone make it kind of a little over the top for someone who's running on a bunch of NUCs or a few machines, right? You'd be better off with Proxmox or XCP&G, or just don't say Hyper-V. I'm not here for that. Anyway, we'll close this because it's still doing its thing. And that's effectively it. When it's done doing its expansion and the thing's ready, which only takes a few minutes, you can connect it out to it. And I really like the concept of being able to use flavors or t-shirt sizes in this case, to be able to like just have standard systems you can deploy. The thing that this really offers that I am I want to get more into. And like the one thing I would say to somebody is like, well, would you use this in your home lab? Like, I mean, no, you wouldn't necessarily use this in your home lab. This would be something if you really want to. Oh, look. I knew he was in there somewhere. I didn't see him say anything in the chat until now. There he is. Terry, it's nice to have you. I didn't say Hyper-V. No. I mean, I did say it. I said don't use it. Don't use Hyper-V. Friends don't let friends use Microsoft Hyper-V, okay? I said it. I should get that on a t-shirt, shouldn't I? Sell it. Back to this. So the one thing that this really offers you in terms of like just like something incredible is the orchestration component of it, which I haven't spent any time in. Stacks. You can build an entire infrastructure as a code system, and with a few clicks and think of Terraform, right? It's essentially the kind of a Terraform equivalent in here. You build out everything you need, you throw it in there, and then via API calls or manual creation, you can fire it off. And like I used an example in there in the video where I saw like, well, okay, let's say you need to deploy a brand new, fresh, like web services stack, right? Have it spin up 2 dedicated VMs for that you define in terms of t-shirt size and storage and all that kind of stuff for like your web services, right? Then you can have it deploy a load balancer. You can have it deploy all of these things, and in the end, it just goes. I know you hate YAML. YAML. The only thing I don't like about YAML. God, I hate YAML, and then YAML loves you back. I will only tell you why I can only say why I hate YAML, and that is I really. How many people have been here who've been working in YAML and had a space in the wrong spot or a tab when they meant to do a space? Like that's the problem with it, is it's so inflexible to the type of spacing characters you're using. I know. YAML. Look at all these people talking to YAML is the way. You guys, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, but anyway, I'm getting off topic here. Sorry. So imagine building out like in your entire infrastructure as code, and then you can just deploy this thing, and when it's done out the other end, you've got everything you need up and running, and that excites me. That is one of those things that, like, not for HomeLab again, unless you were doing a self-hosting HomeLab thing where you were like, this is a service. Oh, there, look at BK getting in that chat. But if you wanted to work on your cloud engineer skills, right? Your infrastructure as code skills, where you were, responsible for defining these templates, building these means of like helping your CI/CD engineers make their code and then deploy and then fire off whatever comes out the other side. That's awesome, and that's something that is just inherently built into OpenStack and built into this Platform 9 stuff, which is, I think it's super cool. Do I have the time for that? No, but I wish I did. I wish I got paid to do that. But fundamentally, otherwise, like I said, you get multiple users, tenants, all that kind of stuff. Networking, define your physical networks, your physical networks is the networks that interface with the outside world. Virtual networks are networks that interface with the physical networks, if that makes sense to you. So like if you had a bunch of, private networks inside of a box that, again, think about cloud when you're deploying VMs, if you're using the Microsoft terminology, and I apologize for that. Like if you're talking about Azure, you've got your resource groups, and you add your virtual network into that resource group, and that virtual network is only inside of there. It doesn't have access to the internet. Then you'd have to produce you'd have to put a gateway in there, which is where the routers come in. You can create all these different complex networking configurations, which is just super, super cool. Again, it's got if you have public addresses, I know there's a gentleman in our Discord who's just got a significant amount of public IP addresses at his disposal for his job. And you could throw all that stuff in here, and you could then provide public IP addresses to your VMs or your networks, whatever you're doing, and you could just do some awesome stuff. Again, think cloud, think big public cloud, big private cloud, and it's just it's awesome. But we blew 30 minutes just talking about PCD, so I do want to move on. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what Shadow Technology said there. Like, build it out and like provide it. Like, a few videos back we talked about Pterodactyl, right? And that's just for game hosting. Like, deploy Pterodactyl, give people access, and they can start spin up and spin down their virtual machines. then go one step further and be like, now I am the network. I am the cloud. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the cloud now. Anyway. Okay, I did want to move on because we blew 30 minutes there and we only have an hour of time to hang out. Let's talk about what I wanted. I did want to talk about what's in the pipeline. That's usually the next thing we kind of chat about. And yeah, let's move on. All right, so next video is about Proxmox backup server. We're going a completely different direction. I like to keep you guys on your toes. I like to try to switch it up. You know, they say that variety is the spice of life, friends. And actually, I owe Brandon this video because I did the Veeam video for Veeam for Proxmox because that was a big thing, right? Very excited about that, and I just wanted to. I have to give a comparison to something that people use because if I don't mention PBS, the whole world catches on fire. Proxmox has very dedicated users, and so if I say use Veeam on it, then they come out and they say wrong, you need to do PBS. So this is my functioning PBS server that's running right now. Content's already in the pipeline. I'm pretty impressed, but there are things I don't know. I mean I don't want to give away a whole bunch of my secret sauce before the video goes up, but the problem that I've seen right now with PBS has nothing to do with its function of backing up Proxmox. If you have Proxmox and you are going to stay on Proxmox, you can't beat the price of free when it comes to backing up with PBS. You just can't. It's just one of those things that it's a good deal, right? And it works. Don't get me wrong. It works well. I don't, again, not gonna overcomplicate these things. It does a really good job, but that's all it does. And that's the thing that kind of gets me. Like if you're a business, and you're coming from VMware or you're coming from somewhere else and you've got all these backups stored in a backup solution, you can't throw them away. You have to sit on them. It'd be best to be able to migrate them so that you can keep that chain of history, all of your different differentials over time, and so that whatever your roll off period is, you can maintain that. And Proxmox backups server really only cares about Proxmox, period, the end. Yes, there is a client. I do talk about that in the video, but the client is really like it's only for basically Debian and Ubuntu, unless you use Alien to get it into a Red Hat solution, and that feels, it feels like it's a missed opportunity. Like it's a backup server for Proxmox, but that's what it says. Anyway, I do like it. I don't want by no means am I saying that it's not good. I think it's actually fantastic. And Terry, someday I'm going to find out that you're actually a Microsoft shill. That's what I'm guessing. Like, I have a feeling that that's what's going on here. Yeah. So I'll go through all of it in the video, and I'm using the best case scenario for storage. And I will say, as an aside, I was hitting a solid 3 gigabytes a second of backup job over the 25 gig connection that I've got on, which is basically saturating it. It happily did it. And so I'm, again, super impressed with it, but it's coming. Other thing I want to show you. I don't know what to say. Thank you again. Open Manage Enterprise, anybody in the chat using it, ping out so that Fake Biz Press can get some. As an aside, highly recommend you join our Discord. Oh, look, you got somebody there. Awesome. Join our Discord, dude. That's what it's for. That's have those kind of conversations. I'm going to switch back to the regular screen here. Oh, it doesn't do the thingy. There we go. Look what finally showed up. Remember last week when I was like, I wanted to work on this Switch video, but it was stuck in purgatory, right? Customs / DHL purgatory. It showed up. This bad boy, the CCR 2216, has got some secrets up his sleeve. 2 100 gig connections. What did I say? There's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 25 gig connections. 1 gig Ethernet for out of band management. The weird thing about this, and this is like their premier layer 3 switch. So Like I'm thinking about doing some major stuff with this, because right now my network is a network on a stick. If you guys know what that term means, it means that the router at the edge of my network, my PSense box, is doing all my inter-VLAN routing. This guy right here, that switch doesn't have a 1.3-inch touchscreen. I'm out. You know, I know it was just said, but I'm just gonna put it up anyway. Like I love it. It doesn't say Ubiquity on it. Doesn't say Ubiquity anywhere. If it was Ubiquity, it would cost twice as much. But what can I say? Anyway, the nice thing, the secret up this thing's sleeve here, other than being a like incredibly high-speed layer 3 routing device, like it'll do, I think it's somewhere around close to 200 gigabits worth of layer 3 routing, which is bananas. It's also got 2 M.2 NVMe slots in it. I know that they make their RDS server, right? The 22, I think it's 2215 or 2216 RDS server, which was getting a lot of play because it's like super fast storage, but it's like very much edge use case, right? Kinda. It's kind of, I mean, we'll find out. The Rose server, yeah, it's that. I feel like MikroTik is like putting storage in anything that can take storage. So it's gonna be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. That's coming up, and you know, I'll show you the. Yeah, let's pop this up on screen and the stage. But this is, you know, this is it. The CCR 2216 1G 12XS 2QS. These are just them calling out the ports are on it, right? But I'm really interested to see how these, the NVMe interfaces on this, which I didn't know existed until I was digging through it. Fiber peripherals, number of M.2 slots. Right, that's hard to see. I'm sorry, guys. That's really enhance. Now you can see it. Look at that. You can see it just fine. So can't wait to see. Like, it'll be interesting to go through that. Like, what do you use something like that for in a layer 3 switch? Like, I mean, it's a layer 3 router basically. Anyway, it's got tons of power. It's one of their highest end switches. ARM64, but the last one we were looking at was a MIPS, if you remember that, the 510 that we had that we did the video on. So super interested to see how this goes. And that is after the PBS video. So that's coming up. So I want 8 terabytes of LAN cache. There you go. I want to have a conversation. For again, I keep referring back to the Discord because it's such a lively place. But I was talking to people earlier today there about what they're using for storage, and over the past couple of days, I have been talking to a bunch of people who are using TrueNAS SCALE. I'm using TrueNAS SCALE Home, or excuse me, as it is now known, TrueNAS Community Edition, right? Anyway, I updated to the most recent release that came out a couple days ago, and I'm now on 2404. I was on RC1. It was fine. 2404 is installed. I'm starting to feel weird about TrueNAS SCALE, and it's got me thinking. So this is, where do I start? I have a whole bunch of stuff I wrote down here. So let's take a step back. You know, we've seen TrueNAS SCALE evolve, right? When it first came out, and you know, as a system that was essentially the future to replace Core, right? Because everyone was like, "Oh, BSD, don't leave my BSD behind." And I mean, even back then, I mean, you got to know that there's just the pace of growth and technology happening for Linux is way faster than what BSD was getting. So if that's your chosen platform, you really you got to go with what's going to give you the best feature. So it makes sense. But in the beginning, you had KVM, right? You had KVM for virtualization. If you're going to run VMs, you had Kubernetes for apps on top of it, right? And then they had their scale out ZFS, supposedly, right? And you know, it was released in 2021, if you guys remember, which is like, man, it feels like yesterday. It just feels like, remember when it was 2021? Pepperidge Farms remembers. Anyway, in 2024, last year, they dropped Kubernetes and went to Docker, right? And when that happened, I lost I had a bunch. I had about 7 or 8 containers that were on there. But one of the most important, most valuable containers to me was my storage container, and it destroyed the storage container. So all the other containers migrated fine. I had a pie hole on there, you know, it was just a bunch of miscellaneous random stuff that I wanted to run, where I didn't want to run that on my container virtual machines. But it took storage. Storage is based on 3 different like containers that are running as part of the thing, and it just chewed up and went bleh, spit it out. And it wasn't one of those situations where I could just hit the grub bootloader and go roll back in time. It was like a point of no return. There was no way to restore it, and that killed me. I mean, I got through it and I rebuilt storage and was like, okay, it's going to be in Docker now, it's fine. But the thing about storage is that it's all based on your time on the network, right? If you're providing storage, cloud storage for others to use, your reputation is based on how long you've been online and the amount of storage you provided. And so all of that reputation was gone because I had to basically redeploy it, and lost all that data and lost whatever they had. But it's fine. Water on the bridge. So I moved on, and it's like, okay, it wasn't that they didn't communicate that it wasn't going to happen. There was lots of communication. There was a lot of stuff out there saying things might break. Just be aware. If you do this, it's like one of those irreversible things. And I did it, and it went, and it was irreversible. I lost it. Now let's fast forward to now 2025. Fangtooth is officially out, right? We're not in release candidate time. We're in full on Fangtooth era. No more libvirt, so there's no KVM as we know it anymore. Now it's been replaced with Incus, and Incus they've even renamed it to instances, because now you can do, from my understanding, I haven't played with them at all. We can actually throw that up and take a look at what we're talking about. I think the instances also allows you to run LXC containers as well, so you can squeeze some more into that. I'm not sure why there we go. We can look at instances now that it's here. Warning. Containers and virtual machines powered by Incus are experimental and only recommended for advanced users. Make all configuration changes using the TrueNAS SCALE UI. Operations using the command line are not supported. Fair. I would do that anyway, because that's the benefit of TrueNAS SCALE is the GUI, because if it wasn't for the GUI, you could just do this manually. Anyway, so exactly. So they're using LXC basically they've replaced this whole side of things. I don't have any VMs, but if you do have VMs and you move to the 2504 release of Fangtooth, your VMs don't migrate. They are broken. You have to redeploy that VM and then reattach the disk volume that was left abandoned by the lack of migration, and then your VM can run. So it's not like you are dead in the water. But it's a lot of work, right? It's not just like you're not just upgrading this and poof, here it is. You're losing stuff. And this is where I start to get into the crux of my thoughts. One more thing to add. I have a buddy who lives close by, and he's a TrueNAS. I mean, all of us are basically TrueNAS users because of the quality of it and the convenience. He upgraded to, he's a Proxmox user. He's got a stack of 4 hosts, I believe, and he uses TrueNAS as his storage backend, but he was using ZFS over iSCSI, which is not iSCSI volumes that have been formatted in ZFS. It's like an entire, there's an API that he can use. So he basically does native ZFS across, and it does snapshotting at the storage at the TrueNAS SCALE side. Sounded like a really interesting thing. They deprecated that function in 2504, but they didn't just, when someone says it's deprecated, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot. Typically, that's your sign of getting off. Like if Two Guys Tech deprecates something, that typically is a shot over the bow to people using it that it's time to move on. It's time to move on, right? That's what it means. Deprecation doesn't mean disablement. Deprecation means that we're not. This is sunset. It's end of life. I think we all can figure out what I'm talking about here. Unfortunately, when they deprecated that, they still left it in there. They officially said it's deprecated, but then they went and changed the standard port interface or port number for TCP on it, which just broke his storage. The thing is, you can't use it. You can't change it on the TrueNAS SCALE side, and you'd have to try to change it on your your other storage side to make it work. And again, I'm starting to paint a picture here, and that is storage for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, we look at TrueNAS and we look down here. I know it says, it's not lost on me that, you know, there's a name change. It's now called Community Edition. It's not called TrueNAS Scale. It's just TrueNAS Community Edition. And I have the distinct impression that what is going on is that for IX systems and TrueNAS, this is being treated more like a developmental playground for them, less concerned about the survivability and the reliability of the platform, and more concerned about it's like the Fedora-esque approach that like Red Hat, like Fedora, this is where we're doing a bunch of changes. It's fine. If you live in this, you expect to be potentially unstable or, you know, keep up, right? But this is our storage, right? I rely on this. There's my lots and lots of data in here that I don't want to lose. And it starts to make me feel like maybe it's time to start thinking about what is a better solution moving forward. Because and guys, like full disclosure, I used to do a lot of like video content work for IX systems back in the day. Like you'll hear my voice in some of their old videos. That's my voice. And the concern here is like, I'm worried that if we don't watch out, it'll become more of a test and development platform first and a reliable storage platform second. I did throw it up on the screen what fake BizPrez said. Yeah, so you feel the same way about OpenSense and their updates. There you go, another good example, right? So, although I think there's some people in the chat that probably fight you for that, because there's a lot of people who believe in OpenSense and the longevity of it. But nonetheless, any way you look at this, this is your storage. This is where you keep your photos. This is where you keep your data. If an update could break it, you know, because you know they're not going to do that with their enterprise version, it becomes a liability. That's all I'm saying. So, you know, which got me thinking, okay, maybe it's time to start evaluating. That's part of the idea here, is that we can give it an opportunity to evaluate it. Storage is your bedrock. Exactly. Storage is, I can't say it better than Game Over Dave said. That's what I would say. So maybe it's time to start looking at that. You know, and a while back, we talked about like HexOS, however you want to call it. You know, it's built on top of TrueNAS. It just says TrueNAS now. I think it used to say Scale. I mean, there's only Scale, guys. Core is end of life. So, you know, and the question is this more like the enterprise version of TrueNAS, which you know that they're doing their care and due diligence, or is this a GUI wrapper on top of it? Oh, you do? That's interesting. Yeah, dude, join our Discord. Absolutely, get in our Discord, fake BizPrez, because we can have that conversation. But when you sign up for this, so if you were to buy HexOS, whatever, you tell me what you want to say. Are you signing up for the same thing of where like the community edition of this gets changed and all of a sudden something's really borked and it's like, well, sorry, we updated. This is the community edition. You're running the community edition. You know what that means, right? It means we don't have any warranty or support. So we've got some, again, I keep talking about the Discord, I'm sorry, but like we got some guys who are running OS Nexus, right? And they love it. OS Nexus has a community edition, although this is the thing that gets me, is like they have a hard limit of 80 terabytes raw per server, but you can have up to 4 servers. So does that mean 4 times 80? If the guys are in the chat can say, but I only have one large storage server. I got roughly 100 primary storage system is about around 190 T. My Synology backup target is around 60 T, which, you know, it's probably going to go end of life after we start looking at some of the PBS or the Veeam stuff. And then, you know, my test system's got around 80. But the point being is like, this by itself is not enough. It feels like we're kind of, yeah, Netta, I totally get you. I got you. Throw it up there so I can see. So just acknowledge I saw it. Yeah, I mean, They're definitely, that's NetApp's thing, right? Is to lock in the hardware. So, I don't want to go, look, I made the video about rolling your own, and I was defeated. Like, I wasn't defeated. I got it done, guys. I was able to make a storage server. Was it something? How cute. We have some heavy hitters, and those heavy hitters are, they're rocking a lot more. But I don't want to roll my own. I want, all I want is to take a step back and make sure that, products like TrueNAS, if they want to make a bleeding edge version, that's fine with me, right? Like, make a bleeding edge version that being involved in that means you're going to be being potentially exposed to some dramatic changes. But a more like stable, like maybe you are not making changes under the hood all that often, you could always make the argument that, well, you don't have to use Docker containers. You don't have to use VMs. You don't have to use LXC. You don't have to use any of that stuff. But if they're making API changes to things that you're relying on, I argue that that's a problem, right? So I know there's a lot of people in this chat who like to point out that their storage arrays are larger than my storage array. It's not how big your storage array is, it's how you use it, friends. But I'm going to hear about that after the show. I know I'm going to get an earful for that one. Sorry. My apologies. I'll go old school, one server wrap. So anyway, that's something that I see as let me know what you think. Like, am I overreacting here in terms of like the way I'm seeing this? But I feel like I'm kind of like, let's pretend this is like a prognostication hat. Like, I feel like I'm seeing the future, and the future is that there's more than just renaming the product community edition than I think that maybe at least myself saw as being a thing. So I have a feeling that the future is going to look a little different. So I've got some action items. I was going to go talk to a few other people who are in the know and see if I'm just being ridiculous, right? I appreciate innovation. Don't get me wrong. I want them to innovate. I want this platform to innovate. I want it to get better. We all want this to get better. We all also want it to be free and reliable. And yes, I could pay for Android. I would pay for TrueNAS if they had I pay right now like $200 a year or whatever it is, $120 a year for pfSense Plus, right? I do that. I'm paying for that because I think that it deserves that because I rely on it. I'm willing to pay for that thing to keep it alive, right? I'd be willing to pay for a version of TrueNAS Scale that didn't potentially break some of my core functionality. But that's how I feel. So it's a thing. So other than that, I ran through a couple good ideas. I just did want to point this out that just in the news, OpenAI wants to buy Chrome. You want to get off Chrome? I mean, Google's not really that great of a steward anyway, right? So, like, maybe it's a good idea. But I think we are getting to that time because I went through all the stuff and things and whatnot. So, friends, just to remind you, I'm not going to be doing this next week. Week after that for sure. I'm not going to live blog or live vlog from Nutanix Next 2025 because it's just not my jam. Like, run around with a phone, not going to do that. So I'm going to do my final plug. Get on our Discord, free. It's a great time. Sad face. I know it'll be okay, guys. I'm sure you'll find something else to do. There'll be lots of fun stuff to do instead of talking. Look at me. But with that, we're going to call it. Go check out HomeLabGear.shop. You can get a hat, or you can get some of the cool stuff that we make and sell. As helps doing this. Consider. I don't know what to say here at this point. So I'm going to leave it at that. This Discord makes me want to spend money. Yes. Thank you, guys. We will see you in 2 weeks. I hope you have a good one. And see you later.